Hi, I'm Alistair Shipley. Driven by the beliefs that everyone has something special to offer, I created Not So Average, the podcast that proves that you don't need to be in the top 1% to be truly extraordinary. Each episode spotlights everyday people from your community, the very individuals you might pass on the street. These relatable stories reveal that whether you're a jack of all trades or a niche specialist, we all have unique experiences and valuable lessons to share. Imagine if we all took a moment to realize we're all not so average. Let's get after it. Welcome to another episode of Not So Average. I'm your host, Alistair Shipley. Before we dive in, please like, subscribe. You know the deal. Share this podcast. Help us spread these inspiring conversations far and wide. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Josh Russell. For those who might not know, Josh is a 5th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and one of Canada's pioneering BJJ black belts. He honed his craft at the legendary Gracie Bara Academy in Brazil, and his journey from Lacombe, Alberta, to becoming a world-class competitor and respected coach is nothing short of inspiring. I've been fortunate enough to train with Josh since 2017, 2018, but there's more to Josh than just his martial arts mastery. He's also a competitive freediving spearfisher with an immense love for the outdoors. Whether he's diving deep for a record-breaking tuna or sharing his invaluable coaching insights, Josh truly embodies the spirit of living life on your own terms. Now, I'm not here to be Joe Rogan and talking endlessly about jiu-jitsu. I'm here because I've learned so much from Josh, and his journey is a perfect example of a not-so-average path to success. So, without further ado, let's dive into the incredible conversation. Josh, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Awesome. That's a good intro. I appreciate that.
This is one part that I take time to actually write out. I'm not going to lie. I tell everybody this, like I do utilize AI to pull up questions and stuff like that. Obviously I have to do research, but the intros is where I put my spin on it. Nice. All of that, I mean.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Sweet.
So early question for you. So what first sparked your passion for Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and how did your journey begin from Lacombe, Alberta, of all places, to train in Gracie Bara in Brazil?
As a kid, I was pretty typical 80s kid, really into martial arts movies, ninja movies, Bruce Lee too, but really big into ninja movies. And then I discovered John Rambo too. So I like military stuff too. My dad was a big hunter, so there was always camouflage and stuff around the house. We played a lot of guns in the neighborhood as kids. And there's always martial arts involved in those hand-to-hand combat battles we'd have. But the martial arts always interfered with hockey. I played hockey at a pretty good level all through my childhood up to 18. And my dad just said, you can choose. I'm not going to say you can't do martial arts, but if it conflicts with hockey, you're going to have to make a choice. And so the choice was always hockey because I had friends there, and martial arts was more singular. You do have a team, but you going in on your own, and it didn't scare me to try it, but I was just too much into hockey to bother. From there, my dad did judo as a kid, and he showed me a little judo when I was a teenager, like a few collar chokes.
That's dangerous when you're a kid.
Yeah, but I didn't really utilize it until high school. We started wrestling. Our friends started wrestling hard. And I would utilize collar chokes cross collar chokes on my buddies all the time. And in high school, I had a car wrestling match, like this car jiu-jitsu. I had a match with a guy that lasts 45 minutes in a car.
We're talking like that stuff that you see online where people are literally fighting in a vehicle.
Well, I hadn't talked to this guy for probably 15 years, and we were friends on Facebook. I sent him a DM with the link to I was like, bro, we were like 25 years ahead of our time, because it was like a 45-minute violent wrestling match in his Monte Carlo, like 80 Monte Carlo. It was epic.
Spacious vehicle though.
Yeah, well, the seats leaned back. It had good padding in the seats too. But yeah, we were using seatbelts to choke each other. Fish hooking was fully allowed in these types of wrestling matches, so it was pretty intense. And then, of course, the UFC was hitting its popularity rate at that time. I was in high school from 93 to 96. So it was just, timing was perfect. teenager that's raging with hormones, and then UFC coming in, we'd rent it, we'd all get together and watch it. And Hoist Gracie obviously caught my attention. Skinny little Brazilian, looked like me. I was a skinny little Canadian, but I was scrappy. Anytime I got into a fight, I did well. But I wanted martial arts. I knew you weren't tough if you didn't know some level of martial art. And I was like, if this little guy can put this on, like, there's got to be something to it.
Yeah.
And then UFC 7 came around, and Marco Ruas was the winner of that, and he was the king of the streets of Rio de Janeiro. And in high school, all my friends, they wanted to go to Europe after high school, backpacking, but I was always drawn to South America. And Rio de Janeiro in particular. I don't know if it was like an old Bond movie, or it was something that sparked Rio de Janeiro, and I just wanted to go there. And then I just made a plan. We gotta get there.
Was there any like martial arts academies in Lacombe at that time, like karate or taekwondo and stuff like that? Or
there was a stage where I did karate for about 2 years, or a year and a half, where there was a Lyle Cheney, well-known karate black belt in Alberta, Central Alberta based. He had school in Pinoca, one in Lacombe, one in Red Deer.
Wow.
But they were just like, his dojo was in Red Deer. And the one in Lacombe was just renting the gym space in the junior high school. But that was my first introduction to how to tie a belt and put on a gi, was actually karate. And I liked it.
There's different ways of tying your belt too, depending on the discipline.
Yeah,
hey?
there is.
You always make fun of me for how I tied my belt, but that's awesome.
It's funny, there was a new guy came in there the other day, and he was tying it like that.
Okay.
A white belt. And I was like, oh, you know the Korean way to tie the belt? He goes, I don't know anything what I'm doing here, but he was going to start just like you do it. I thought that was pretty funny.
That's awesome. Growing up, like, who were your role models? It doesn't even necessarily have to be in regards to like martial arts, but who motivated you to become the young man that you were when you were younger?
I didn't really take to heroes or role models too hard. I don't know why. I knew other people had them. I mean, I liked Wayne Gretzky because he played for the Edmonton Oilers, Messier and all these guys with the hockey. I liked, Sylvester Stallone.
Of course.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. But no one was a hero to me. They were just guides, I think, what, maybe a man could be. And then I guess my dad, though, is definitely was my biggest influence. Like, he was hard on me, but he wasn't. He was just a good teacher. I didn't know he was teaching me half the time, the lessons that were being taught. But it was rough as a kid because I think he wanted my academics to be stronger. But I was just destined to do athletics. I wanted to be an athlete in some form. And academics was always in the back of the boat for me. But my dad liked me in the sports, right? So he couldn't even punish me with hockey. He wouldn't take hockey away from me if I did bad in school, which kept me active. And I needed to burn off that energy because I had a lot of energy for sure as a kid.
Yeah, you always, your stories on the mats about your dad have always been of lessons that he's taught you. So I suspected he was going to be one of the people that kind of helped guide you because you did talk about him fondly. So is there anybody particularly that you wish that you had the opportunity to roll with, maybe in their prime or just period? Because having spent so much time with you, you've obviously shared a lot of stories of world champions, sharing the mats with legends like some of the Gracies. Is there anybody that you wish to this day that you had the opportunity?
Yeah, actually, when I first got it into my head that I was going to go to Brazil, I purchased some tapes, tournament tapes out of the back of Black Belt magazine. There was a little classified ads, and I can't remember if it was out of California. I think it was, or maybe they were coming from Brazil, but I think they were Paquetá produced, an old Brazilian that used to film all the tournaments. And I got my hands on them, and I was putting them in my VCR, and it was my first view of actually seeing jiu-jitsu done black belts versus black belts, because all the jiu-jitsu we were learning was off of like Hoist Gracie and Horian Gracie's fundamentals, first jiu-jitsu instructionals that ever came out. And it was all self-defense based. And then we would put that towards each other, like two guys that don't know anything. No one guiding us other than the tapes. So when I got those tapes, it was eye-opening to see, okay, this is what jiu-jitsu looks like when it's going against each other. And a lot of the stars in those videos were guys like Fabio Gurgel, Holetta, some Mario Sperry. And these guys I wanted to train with. But I had no idea of the whole team dynamic of Brazil at all before I even got my foot on the land.
So you didn't know the
Gracie
kind of
Bara,
competition?
I had no idea. When my first contact was with Bruno Fernandes, and I think it was 1999 or 90, maybe even mid to late 98. I made the decision I was going to go to Brazil and get my black belt from one of the Gracies. Those were the words that came out of my mouth. I didn't know that there was like non-Gracies that were like very respected and good training as well. I just knew that the Gracie name too would hold more weight as far as my education went in the long run. That's what I thought at that time anyways. I just made the decision, I'm going to go there. Sorry, how am I going to figure that out? I just went on the internet. There was no Google back then. There was MSN search.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay.
And I was on just a basic Brazilian Jiu Jitsu search, and I think I was on page 33 before I found a page in Portuguese, and then there was an email on that page, and I just emailed the guy, and he got back to me, and that was Bruno Fernandes.
Amazing.
And I just said, I want to come train with one of the Gracies. And I train at Gracie Bara, Carlos Gracie Jr. is our leader.
Can you explain, because there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this podcast that have no idea about this whole lineage thing. I relate it to like your education system. Like obviously you want to go to the highest accolade school for the particular profession you want to get in. And for you identified that as you wanted it straight from the source. You didn't want a diluted version of your education. So if you don't mind kind of your perspective sharing the whole importance of lineage and who even Carlinhos was.
Yeah, Carlos Gracie Jr. is the son of the founder of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, or Carlos Gracie Sr., who started the first Jiu Jitsu Academy in Brazil in 1924. And he had a large family. Carlos was one of those kids, and he was junior. He was a student of his older brother, Holz, who tragically passed in a hang gliding accident. Yeah. And after that, Carlinhos took over that school, which was a powerhouse school in Rio de Janeiro in the 70s. And then Carlinhos took that over. But I knew nothing of this lineage before going there. The name, Gracie, I'll go to Gracie, right? But it all worked out. Like Carlos was amazing to me while I was there, and time grows things apart, but I have nothing ill to say about my time at that academy. I knew you had to earn your time there, your stripes, because a lot of foreigners coming through the door here and there. So it's hard to trust people, but Carlinhos was always very friendly with me and gave me lots of roles. But it was just, the education part, I knew that being close to him would give me the closest to the his learnings were from his brother Holz, who was from Helio, who was from Carlos. Like it's pretty tight as far as being able to access a source in your lineage in martial arts. It's unheard of in this day and age.
Yeah, but it's definitely been a benefit to you, the business side of your academy, right? The ability to say, as you said, closeness to the well. Yeah. A lot of people do appreciate how pure, and I should be doing that in air quotations, but how pure your jiu-jitsu is because of where you got it from. Because now you get so many delineations from what I guess Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is, and you hear about it now, American Jiu Jitsu and all this stuff. But anyways, we don't need to get into that.
Well, you could argue there's Gracie Jiu Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, American Jiu Jitsu. Yeah. And it's funny when you say American Jiu Jitsu. When I was down there and kind of part of the team, speaking fluent Portuguese with everyone, when the tournaments would start coming, like world championships, and Americans would start coming in, or foreigners, we'd be like, okay, boys, start getting stretched out. Here comes the American Jiu-Jitsu, because we knew it'd be way more intense.
Okay.
Yeah. And especially you don't know the guys, right? They're coming into your for tough roles, and no one knows who's who.
Or do you think that they're taking
more
that,
wrestling?
wrestling?
There's like a wrestling mentality with their jiu-jitsu, where jiu-jitsu
Grindy
Brazil was a
pressure.
lot of very smooth guard work, tricky, and there's more physicality against the Americans.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
we recognized it in the early 2000s, but that's just where it goes. There's evolution like that, but the classic Gracie Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is still very sought after for sure.
Of course. What made, or in your opinion, what do you think you did differently that really let Carlinhos adopt you as one of his own students? Because you said there's a lot of tourism going down there. You get a lot of foreigners, and it's hard to trust people. But you obviously made an impact on this legend in the sport. How quickly was it? You got your black belt, and I wanted to hear it from you. How quickly did you get your black belt from white?
Oh, very quickly. I was a self-taught white belt, me and a couple guys, but I was getting to what would be considered today's world a good white belt when I went to Brazil. And that time leading up to that, there was a lot of no-gi submission grappling, we called it back then, just submission grappling or submission wrestling.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of that in MMA training as well, a little bit the year before I left.
Yeah.
So it was like about a year and a half that I was self-training with a guy with jiu-jitsu school. It was originally a Japanese jiu-jitsu school.
Okay.
We just had the tapes. So we were following the latest and greatest. After about a year and a half, there wasn't any more challenges there. And so I went to a school that was training more MMA and grappling, submission grappling. That's where I met Jason McDonald.
Okay.
Which flourished
famous
into
UFC fighter.
Yeah, flourished into our relationship. And I just needed more challenges. And then I was there for about a year. During that year, I was also working full-time shutdowns.
For oil patch?
Yeah, oil patch, saving money to get out of Dodge and go to Brazil. But I got to Brazil, a good white belt. I was there for a month and 10 days. And I got a blue belt. No, I got there at the end, at beginning of November, and I got my blue belt officially at the Christmas party in December. But I'd actually been given it like a week earlier. Okay. But it was an official tying on or giving in front of the whole Gracie Bara team.
That's
and then
cool.
They told me to say something in front of everyone. I was like, I don't speak a lick of Portuguese. Sorry, but thank you for welcoming me here. It was pretty wild. I got a picture of that somewhere, but I haven't found it. I haven't seen it in 20 plus years.
So you did about 2.5 years self-taught being up here in Canada, then a month down there, and you got your blue belt, and then you had this accelerated track over, what was it, 4 years to black?
From the blue, the time I got my blue belt, what was December 2000? Yeah, December 2000, I got my blue belt. I got my purple belt and 4 months later. So I was only blue belt for 4 months. I took, I think, 15 private lessons during that time. I had a bad habit of smoking darts sometimes at work. And my dad knew, and he'd already quit smoking, and he told me he'd give me $1,000 if I quit. And I wasn't a heavy smoker by any means. It's more of a work thing, but he just didn't want it growing into something bigger. Because I was an athlete, and I knew it was like total counter. But like you're working 12-hour shifts up in Zama Lake, you might have a cigarette for a break after a while. But so I did quit, and then so he gave me $1,000, and I just put it right to private lessons. And private lessons back then were like, I think it was costing me about $50 Canadian an hour, maybe a little less than 50. So I just put it all to that, and I went to those private lessons like with purpose. I would train these classes twice a day. I'd have all these problems that everyone's giving me, and then I would come, help me solve this, and I would get an answer for everything, and I'd write it down, and that really helped. Like I really accelerated in 4 months because it was like I was just needing some examples and some guides in front of me, like some guys like Hodge or Gracie. I could just watch them
So Roger Gracie, for those that don't know, is one of the greatest of all times, if not the greatest of all times. And he's a big man too.
Yeah,
he's a huge man.
6'4", like 220 or so.
Yeah.
And so I got to watch him and other legends like Gordo and Holetta, Americano, Ricardo Americano, like these old guys. And they weren't in there all the time, but when they came in, Nino was in there lots. Like, and he was just a wizard. And yeah, I wouldn't even know what he was doing. And you just look at other black belts and they're like looks of shock on their face when he pulls a move. I'm like, I guess that was amazing. I don't know what he did, but they don't even know what he did either. It's pretty wild. But this was a great guide for me to grow quickly. And
4 months to purple.
I got my purple belt.
Yeah.
And I had to come home. It was the end of my 6 months. And then I was home for a year and I was saving money to go back. So that was up north in Fort McMurray. So I wasn't training.
Yeah.
I didn't train for the year I was home. I went into 2 tournaments because they happened to coincide with my 3 days off that I would get every 20 days or something. So I went in them and I did well. I won them. But I wasn't training at all. So just saved money. And then I got back. It was May 1st somewhere around there. Between May 2nd and 4th, 2002. And the plan was to stay until I get my black belt. Fresh, brand new purple belt. First week of training back as a purple belt now. And some people didn't see me get my purple belt as I left. Carlinhos, like it was pretty quiet, like how I gave my blue belt, except there was a Christmas party following, so it came out there too. But I did not feel like a purple belt for about the first month of being back in Brazil. But then quickly, I got my timing back and got my conditioning back, and then I started flowing. And then I suffered a couple of injuries.
Yeah,
training that
ribs, frequently.
Like it was a couple of knee injuries. Like these ones, the worst ones I think kept me off the mat for a month.
Okay.
And you just do a lot more beach time and barbecue eating, stuff like that. But right back at it. That was the thing. It was my consistency that, like you were asking earlier about what Carlinhos, like why he took me in.
Yeah.
I think it was my consistency.
Yeah. You kept coming back too.
I was always there. I was there. They had an early morning class, but it was old boys class, so I didn't invade that one. But every other class I was in. I took Saturdays off. There was some training on Saturday, but Saturday, Sunday was recovery days.
Nice.
But it was Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 12, 6 to 9 in the evenings. And as long as there was a lot of times there was Advil to get through. I was beat up lots. But so I was a purple belt for a year and a half.
Yeah. And
then I got my brown belt. And brown belt, I just had a really amazing year. I didn't get injured. Was healthy. Weight was always on point for my division. And I think I went into 8 or 9 tournaments as a brown belt in a year.
That's amazing.
And
prize money in those at that point in time?
There was.
Okay.
I did win prize money in my last tournament as a brown belt. There was an absolute division, and they split it. So it was 75 kilo under and 75 over.
Yeah.
And I lost my first match in my division because I showed up late. Got lost.
Rushed.
It was a big rush, and it was pouring torrential rain outside. I was soaked. I lost my match, but I was already signed up for the absolute, so I had some time, got ready, and then I met the guy I lost my match in the first round, the absolute, and I ran through him, got my redemption, and then I ended up winning the next 3 matches, and the last one was a tough little guy. It was like super fast and aggressive, but I knew how to score advantages because at that point I was pretty tight on cash, and I was like,
I need that money for privates.
I need that money. No, I need that money. Just I knew I was going home in a month.
Yeah.
I already had a ticket purchase. So I was like, I could use that for Christmas gifts or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was brown belt for a year, basically from December to December, Christmas party to Christmas party. And I was training like a madman. I was, no doubt. But I had a good schedule. I was resting. And then the brown, having no injuries really in brown, that made a big difference. My dad came down and my uncle came down for world championships at brown belt.
Yeah.
I was pretty pumped. Like, I thought,
Jeez.
I'm going to go somewhere here. And third round, I got passed and the guy just mauled me and hung on.
Wow.
I couldn't get anything going.
So that's...
But my teammate at the time, Celso, Vinicius, he won it. And he was a training partner too. So like I knew what the level was to win it, right? And it was intense rolling for sure. With he's like a honey badger, that guy.
Okay. Now, if I'm doing the math, so you said a month till blue, 4 to 6 months was it for purple? Then a year and a half as purple to brown, and then a year? Yeah. Jeez.
I went technically, if you remove the year where I was home in between my Brazil runs, my 2 biggest trips to Brazil, if you remove that, it's 3 years.
Jeez.
From white to black. But that's not counting my self-training off of VHS, but it's hard to count that as.
Yeah.
But from being in a jiu-jitsu school, training at a jiu-jitsu school with a black belt, it was 3 years.
Yeah. Because there's that joke, well, not so much a joke, it's also a saying, is what's the average amount of time it takes for someone to get a black belt? And it's the average person doesn't get a black belt. Yeah. And a lot of my friends have they have a history of like Taekwondo and karate and all this stuff. And they're just like, how long have you been training? And I'm like, I've been 8-9 years. And they're like, and you're just a purple belt. I was like, most people, it takes 10 to 12 years if you actually calculate it. And they're like, that's longer than any master's doctorate program ever. It takes a good chunk of time.
It takes a long time, man. And I think that's what people that realize that and why it's worth it then. You know, that's why, like yourself, you get on and you're on board.
Yeah.
And it's like a journey that doesn't end either. If you really appreciate it and enjoy it, you just keep doing it as long as you're healthy. So much
to relearn.
Yeah.
They say you get your black... Was it you that said it? Once you get your black belt, you start over again.
Yeah, for sure. I have to rediscover jiu-jitsu that I was doing 15, 20 years ago. Because you just evolve and I just start doing different things and things that work easier, more efficient. And then some of that fancier stuff, you don't even do it anymore. No. You don't bother with it.
The flair.
Yeah, the flair.
A lot of people aren't going to know this, but you have nearly 50 black belts that you've promoted since 2011, just based off of the sites. What motivated you to share your knowledge and grow the BJJ community in Canada?
That was always my goal when I went to Brazil. I was already like reading Black Belt magazine, and they had a section in there, the business of martial arts. Okay. So like I was already, my first Japanese jiu-jitsu school there in Red Deer, the instructor asked the class about, I think I was only there for a month, and asked, does anyone here think they would teach jiu-jitsu one day or teach martial arts for a living? And I was the newest student. I was the only one to put my hand up. So I already I didn't want to work in the oil field for guys yelling at me.
It was a means.
For the first 20 years of your career. So I just thought I'd rather do something that keeps me active and healthy too. Because once I got out of hockey, I needed a new thing. Jiu-jitsu seemed like it made sense. So then when I decided I was going to Brazil, I never once said to myself, I want to be a world champion. And I don't know why. These things just never really fed into me. As a kid, I never said, I want to be a Stanley Cup champion. I never said to myself, I loved the Stanley Cup. I loved the hockey, but I never said, I want that to be me. Like I looked at those guys, but I didn't say that's going to be me. But I still wanted to play hockey at a high level. Of course. I still wanted to do everything at a high level. But I don't know. I never said I wanted to be a jiu-jitsu world champion. The goal was always to bring jiu-jitsu of a high quality back to Alberta and spread good quality jiu-jitsu. That was always the goal. And I knew there was going to be expansion. My students themselves seeing the beauty of jiu-jitsu and wanting to start a school. And that was the idea. Over the years, there's been students that have done it too close to my business or whatever that causes rifts in the community a bit. But all in all, I'm pretty confident on the ground I stand on and what I'm teaching.
We have the auto mall going on in the area for jiu-jitsu. We got all the schools near you.
It's pretty busy around there, but business is going good right now. And It's growing back. Lots of kids are excited about getting into jiu-jitsu. It's growing in popularity, and I did my part in really trying to get the roots going, and now my students are doing a great job in expanding that. And I get to go to tournaments and see my students fighting another one of my students, and like they're wearing a JR brand on their shoulder, like showing their lineage. It's cool. It's what I envisioned, and it's now a reality.
So running on that, when was a moment for you that you realized you made it in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, like back home here in Canada?
I guess when I was, I don't know, it's tough to say. I mean, I quit my job, I quit a job and went full-time jiu-jitsu probably a little sooner than I should have. But I knew if I did, I would have to make it work. I have some, I don't know, I'm pretty optimistic on things in life, and if I want something bad enough, I always figure out a way to get it done. I'm not a greedy person, and I want things like this and that, and I'm shysting people to get things done. I'm just saying, like, when I was a kid, I'd say to my mom, I want that pair of basketball shoes, and she's like, they're $200. They're like some like hot Air Jordans or something, and I would just figure out a way, and I would pick up my buddy's paper route for a week, or go shovel some snow or something.
The Canadian enterprise.
It would be. And when we were kids, we would go out on the golf course in the evening at dusk. My dad taught us how to do this, and we would go. We'd be in the trees while the golfers would still be finishing their last rounds.
Yeah.
But my dad also knew which holes were which, and where the golfers were most likely be at, considering the light left out. And because we wouldn't be doing it with headlamps, but just in the evening. And we'd just be looking for balls in the trees, and we collect them.
Sell them roadside?
We'll get to this. This is a great story, actually, because it started when we were young, me, my brother, my dad, and we lived just by the golf course. We had permission to access the farmer's field that backed right onto the golf course. So we'd just come in, we'd collect them until we probably had a few hundred. A couple times my dad took us out late at night, though. And then he'd get down in swim trunks and he'd go into the shallows.
Oh my gosh.
Pull them all out of the sloughs. So we'd bag them up. And we'll clean them all up. Me and my brother would scrub them, bag them in Titleist, Pinnacle, Top Flight, colors, everything. And then we'd Ziploc them, and we'd put a masking tape with price tag on the dozen balls. And then we had permission at the farmer, and we'd just sit there at the 13th tee off and hang it right on the bar, the bags of balls. And the golfers loved it. They loved to see us hustle. It was like, and the golf course hated us for it, though, right? They tried to run us off, but we had permission. We stood our ground. But yeah, that was good lessons my dad gave us as a kid. Of like in the 80s, I think the first time me and my brother did was like 84. We came home, we walked home, we had $180. Like,
with the inflation, that's huge.
Yeah, no, like we were kids, we were just like ching, ching, ching. We were buying slushes down at the Mac store for the next year on that money.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That kind of put some entrepreneurial spirit into it. And I thought about, is it a business? The article in the Black Belt magazine, The Business of Martial Arts, showed me that it could be like a viable business. But I also didn't want to get too corporate-y, or I wanted to be connected to my business. Even now you see a lot of jiu-jitsu school owners. There might have been the original black belt. They're more business owners now, and not hands-on with their students. I'm hands-on with every single one of my students. Like literally, I'll put my hands on them to put their foot here to make them do it right. From 4 years old to 65 years old. And that's what I wanted. I want to be connected to it. And if I'm here, this is my purpose. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it to the best I can.
I always appreciated that about your school, is you are there with the kids, and you give the same amount of enthusiasm. The techniques are still the same, just maybe the delivery is in a more playful environment to suit the kids. But then that same jiu-jitsu is what the adults get. So once you get the youths jumping into the adults class, they're hitting you with the exact same freaking moves that all the adults are hitting each other with. But probably even a little more graceful, to be honest. But
they start chasing the adults pretty good.
Oh man, there's so many kids that have come up since I joined. And it's funny because their parents will sit on the side bench, and I'm just thinking of Riken. His mom's laughing the whole time. I was like, I legitimately have one more year that I might be able to get this kid, and then he's going to run amok with me.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah, they're committed, and that's awesome to see. That's, for me, winning in my choices, seeing these kids, and they're respectful to me and the other adults at the gym. I can't speak for their personal behavior when they're out with their teenage friends or what they're up to, but I hope that we give them enough guidance in the academy that they're good people out on the street as well. But yeah, it's a pleasure. That's the pleasure, is seeing the students' growth. Like that's what gets me up to do it every day.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've always enjoyed is your incorporation of your family into jiu-jitsu. So obviously talking about your son, Teo, has grown up on the mats, and you obviously take a lot of pride in your son. And it's fun to see the playful aspect and then the hard love that also comes too.
Hard love, for sure.
And having been on the receiving end, because your son is the same belt level as me, he's bigger than me now, but being on the receiving end of his ass whoopings or getting him back and seeing you just like, you're very quiet. You don't jump in very much, but you can see when Teo does something good, you light up, and there's obviously a sense of pride. So
for sure.
I've always enjoyed that.
Well, it's been a long process with Teo. You
Yeah.
know? I was actually just having this conversation with one of my students who has his own school, has his own kids in his school, about his brother was telling him to pull back a little bit on
the pressure
on his boys. And I concurred with his brother's assessment, because if you push them too hard as being your kids, they'll push them away from the sport. And I'd never had expectations of him being the best, because I never had those expectations on myself. But I have the expectations of you doing your best. You've got to give it your all. And because everyone's best is not going to be the same. We're all different. With my son, I just never wanted to push him off the mat. Jiu-Jitsu was a place of a refuge for him.
Yeah.
Friends, many who we never know. He's known for years, but he really knows, but doesn't even know their name. Not so much now, but like through his early teens, he didn't know anyone's name. I'd say this guy, and he's like, who? Then I have to describe him. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. But I remember him when he was always at the gym with me. Me and his mother, she was Brazilian. She came. I brought them to Canada. We were together for a few years before things went south. But when we decided we were going to be great co-parents, and we were good friends. I think we did a good job with him. But it was always her schedule, my schedule. I always had him on jiu-jitsu nights for kids. Yeah. Or when he started school, it was jiu-jitsu nights. Before that, it was, I think, a week on, week off he did, or something like that. But he would have a little fort under the desk. It's the same desk we still have. He'd have his little DVD player. And then he'd just come out and play around, jump on some sweaty guy's back. He doesn't even know. I'm like, dude, I don't even know the guy. He just signed up today. Get off his back. It was pretty wild. But he was like, I would have to make sure he wasn't getting run over by guys on the mat, because it was even tighter quarters back then. Yeah. But he was always involved, right? Yeah. And then his jiu-jitsu I called him the king of the bronze medal. He had so many bronze medals come up. So he was doing things right. Yeah. But there was always kids, and even our kids in our own program, many of them would always, but I saw something good that he was, because I'm not pushing it too hard, he is absorbing. He's absorbing. Yeah. And there's always hidden jiu-jitsu lessons, tickling, I'd pin him, but it was all jiu-jitsu type of pins. And then all of a sudden he started learning how to slip out. And then he started getting slippery at jiu-jitsu too, right? Oh yeah. It's the same kind of thing. But yeah, it's cool seeing this stage now where he's becoming an adult now, and all that work coming from 4 to 19 now is starting to show up. And yeah, I claimed not long ago that I'd be 60 by the time he could really take me, but that's a lie. I'm already falling apart, and he's getting stronger. So I can see it happening in the next 5 years, but I'm not giving him any easy ones. He's going to have to.
Heck no.
He's going to have to beat me up for real. Yeah. And then I'll pass the torch.
So often people talk about the developmental benefits of doing martial arts. What are some of the things that you see from your experience, like training these kids that are becoming young men, and some of them are now men? And what is some of the benefits of martial arts on discipline and confidence and those sort of things?
Well,
like,
those
you've
are
seen
the
that.
two biggest ones, discipline and confidence. I was in, I don't know how many fights from grade 1 to grade 12. Lots from grade 1 to grade 6. Fewer from grade 7 to grade 12, but the ones from 7 to 12 were more significant with the opponent and the number of people watching it. But these were like fights. My son hasn't been in any real fights. He didn't get into fights. Now, I know we're not the same in that regard, but I think jiu-jitsu he builds a confidence. He took a kid down once who kicked him. He said, I soto-garied him, and I put him down really nice, Opaya. He says, I'm like, that's okay. Next time, maybe a little harder so he doesn't kick you again. But I think with the more jiu-jitsu, or even martial arts, it's not just jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of martial arts that can instill these values. But the confidence, when you build the confidence, you just become that much less of a target to the people that look to bully or look for weakness. And that could even be in the office space. Someone just looking to gain a step on you on the totem pole, so to speak, by trying to attack you in a way, like make you insecure in a way. But if you're walking with confidence, you don't even look like you're a target. And I think that really helps. And then the more confident you get, the less you think you need to prove anything to anyone. And then discipline. I haven't been in a real fight since I started training jiu-jitsu, like 18. I've been in some professional mixed martial arts fights and amateur fights or whatever, but nothing on the street, like physical fists. Close a few times, but
I think that's what the martial arts teaches you, though, is that you should most commonly walk away. Like, the fact that I know how to fight highlights that on that off chance that there's somebody that knows more than me, it's not worth it. Or
the potential of hurting someone more than you want
that too.
To, and with that feeling like you made me do it, or you made me, like, you were biting my leg. I had to wreck your elbow, but that's not.
Doesn't feel
it's
good.
not ideal. You know, only if it's absolutely. What it's taught me is I learned how to diffuse, and my angle of diffusing fights and the few times it's come up once or since I've been heavy into martial arts was I just tell them with the most honest eyes and look on my face that I'm a professional martial artist. I don't want to fight you, but if you fight me, if you put hands on me, I'm most likely going to hurt you. And I don't want to do that. And one guy, like, we had two guys like try to pick a fight with me and another buddy in an alley in between from two popular bars. And they were like basically separating, like, buddy with my buddy, and I told him this, and he just said thank you. And he said, then he called his buddy off. He said, let's get out of here. And I was like, that worked, man. So that was the first time I tried it. And another time I did it, I had my vehicle and it had my company business on there. And I was just like, dude, I don't want to do this, but this is what I do. If you put hands on me, I'm gonna defend myself. I always work my way away from them if they're trying to get closer. I always keep that safe distance where I can react accordingly in a proper manner, like get a clinch or get away, whatever it is. I just try to avoid it.
That's the best way. So I wanted to change it up because obviously we talked about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but the fun fact that you have this hidden sport, not a hidden sport, but this sport that like pops out of nowhere. I swear to God, like, I don't know how many times you've been like, I'm disappearing for a free diving tournament. And you're just like, how the frick have you been practicing for this? So I want to ask some questions on this because this stuff is fascinating. The ability for you to hold your breath for such a long period of time. But how did you become involved with like free diving and then I guess spearfishing? Well, what initially drew you to it?
Started with my dad again. He had masks. Like kind of scuba masks, always floating around, and snorkels.
Of course.
And my first real experience with like clear water was in BC on a camping trip. The mouth of a river draining out of a lake and the salmon running up into the lake, on their spawning. So like I was just going in freezing water, but like after a few runs, because we just go down and snorkel and then I dip down and like swim with the fish and wicked visibility. And then I, take the trolley of the current down a little bit and then get out on the bank and just keep running it, right? But I'd just be like blue lips, just shaking, purple lips. But I loved it. And then I noticed I could hold my breath longer than my older brother, longer than my older sister. And then in the pool, I noticed no one could hold their breath as long as I could. And I was like, oh, is it because I'm comfortable under there or what? I didn't know what it was. My dad taught me how to equalize my ears when I was like probably 7. So it didn't hurt my ears, because everyone would say it hurts my ears to go down to the bottom of the pool, because I'd always go to the bottom. I'd throw things in the dive where the diving boards were. I'd throw coins and go retrieve them just back and forth. And so then I was always into hunting. Yeah. I liked this free diving. Knew very little about it. Pre-internet, there was no, I guess you could have got to the city to see maybe in the library there'd be something, but like I didn't know how to source any of this information. Every now and then you'd see something of it on TV. Yeah. And then spearfishing, I wanted to do it in Brazil. I saw people spearfishing, going off the beach, just shore diving. Never really saw many people coming back with things, but it wasn't like lots. It was like just here and there. But I was like, I want to do that. I love snorkeling. I'd go out with a mask and snorkel. I brought one to Brazil with me, and I'd go out just outside the surf on clear days, and I'd just go pick up money, sunglasses that would get washed in off the beach. I would pass time on the hours on the water. But I didn't get into spearfishing really officially until one of my first trips to Mexico. We just wasn't really doing it the legitimate way. We just had a little pole spear, and we were going out and feeding the odd fish to an eel that we found. We'd get a little reef fish, and then
So when did you decide to actually start doing competitions?
My first real experience in a competition was 2017, and I made contact. I just saw this YouTube or social media video of a guy talking about blue water spearfishing for tuna and marlin, and I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. And so I just DM'd him, and he's like, you should come to Mexico. We got a tournament coming up, and then we could do a trip afterwards too, something if it's in your books. And I was like, okay, I'll come down to the tournament. I showed up the day before the tournament. I had no spear gun. I have a little 90 centimeter, like one for like little reef fish in tight areas. That's what I brought with me. And then I'm planning to buy one at the tournament. They have a pro shop there. And that's the biggest blue water spear gun on the wall. I bought that thing. I didn't actually pay for it at that time, but I had it out. I actually returned it because it had a little mechanism problem. But my first day out in that water, I shot a 300-pound black marlin like before noon.
And you've never done that before?
No, I'd been out in deep water about 100 feet
but not
around a shipwreck,
but
not. And even on the Caribbean side of Mexico, where I had done some spearfishing, I'd shot some barracuda and permit off a shipwreck, like 50, 60 feet deep, which was built that confidence that I could do this. Right? Okay. So that was my opener, but that was down in the Caribbean. We saw marlin swim in front of us once, but you can't spear marlin on the Caribbean side. On the Pacific side, they're plentiful, so you're allowed to, and you're only allowed one in the tournament. And that was like the first. I saw a couple wahoo earlier, like smaller ones. Yeah. And I felt like the guy that I DM'd, who's like a professional at this point, he's already a professional spearfisher. I feel like he had to take me on his team because I didn't have anyone on the team, so we made a team. And there was another guy on there filming too, who was filming like a little kind of short video for him. So he's catching
this
some of
new guy jumps into the scene,
and then boom, they were pretty stoked though. They were, but beginner's luck, I guess you could call it.
You have this habit of jumping into the deep end on everything, it seems, like going down to Brazil, obviously.
Yeah, like I said, if I got my mind on something and I want to do it, it's usually, I think I might have a knack for it, or predisposed towards some success with it. And then, but I think my hunting skills land hunting skills, they transfer over well into hunting underwater, and then having the comfortability of holding breath that already existed and just bringing them all together. And spearfishing is it's growing a lot of popularity. Yeah.
So explain what it's like to catch like even that marlin that you said.
Well, that was amazing. Okay. This is the funny part about this. I sent a video to my buddy, my hunting buddy, the day before I left for Mexico. I was like, this is going to be me tomorrow. And it was a video of a guy on the back of a striped marlin. It's probably only 120 pounder though, 100 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the back of the striped marlin and he's trying to dispatch the fish.
Yeah.
But he's like on it like a cowboy and he's got the bill,
just getting pulled.
this spear and he's at the surface, but he's trying to like finish the fish off. I was like, this is going to be me. And he's, yeah, who do you think you are? Kevin Costner from Waterworld? And so I sent him a picture like about 18 hours, I don't know, 24 hours later, 40 hours.
Yeah, whatever.
I sent him a picture of me with a 300-pound black marlin.
And I see you and I raise you 3x.
He's what? He just couldn't believe it, right? But so I just finished saying to my buddy that I feel like he might be annoyed by me almost at this point. And we're friends now. This is just our first day really meeting each other. I was like, hey, where's the marker buoy again? So the way it works, like there's a high point and there's a current. We go up current. We'll put a marker buoy with a flag sticking up at the highest point. So we know we're drifting towards, right? And maybe time a dive, right? Because it could be 200 feet here. But as you get up towards the flag, it could be a seamount coming up.
Were you at 200 feet?
I'm saying when the boat drops us off,
okay,
it could be 200 feet below us to the ground, to the bottom.
Okay.
But as the current takes us to the flag, the marker buoy, we could get shallower and shallower. So you want to, the marker buoy gives you an idea when to dive to get maybe closer to the bottom and find fish closer in a reasonable shooting distance, right? I was asking my buddy Pete, I was like, Pete, where's the marker buoy? And he's just like, over there. He didn't even lift his head up out of the water, he just pointed. I was like, okay. I put my head back down underwater. And then about 5 seconds later, I'm like, what the heck is that? And it was just swimming right towards me on the surface. My snorkel was out of the water. And he just came right towards me. And then he just, about 3 meters in front of me, just banked hard 90 to my right. And I'm here in a tournament. And this is a legal fish. And so I shot and boom. I saw my shaft sticking out the other side, 2 feet. So I knew it was center mass. But he started running and my buddy pops his head up, or no, first I popped my head up and I was like, Marlin. And I said it just like that, Marlin. And he looks and sees the fish running and he comes up and he is screaming so ecstatically. And then it dropped in the realization what I'd just done.
Yeah, now I gotta
and
get
he's,
this.
Dude, you shot a fucking Marlin, you're the fucking man. But then now it starts running. So the way it works is it's a spear shaft is connected to a shooting line. The shooting line is about 20 feet long.
Okay.
And then that's connected to a float line, 100-foot float line that's connected to a float.
So you can watch it on the water.
But because my buddy's close, he's got a float line too. And all our shit's all getting tangled up as I'm like, I grab the float because he starts pulling me, right? Once my line's 100 feet out, I'm on my float and he's dragging me. And I'm trying to like pull the line off of me. And I get untangled. My buddy's, are you sure it's a good shot? It's going to hold? I'm like, yeah, it's a good shot. And I put 2 hands. I put my spear gun, the bands over my arm. Yeah. And I put two hands on that float. And it dragged me for about a third of a mile and I was hanging on. And so what I'm thinking is he's at the bottom and he can't go any deeper. And I'm like, with all the line, everything's working out like on the angle. Yeah. But when you look at the topography of the underwater on a map, you can see it. It's like the shape of the island underwater, but then it just tips out and then he goes down to 1,000 feet. So then as soon as he gets off that plateau and he just sees deeper water, he starts dropping, he starts just dragging me underwater. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the part where you let go. I can't go down there with him and keep fighting. So I let go of my float, pop back up on the surface, and I see my float. And it's hard as a rock. It's inflatable, but it's hard. And it goes down. It's like a 3-atmosphere float. So it's supposed to be good for 3 atmospheres underwater. Okay. It went down, and I saw it just go like a pancake and then fold in half a banana. I was like, what? That's it. Like, because that's, you know, $400 float.
Yeah.
Your shaft is $150. The float line, that's another $300. It could be cheaper or whatever, but I think that one was $150. So I'm looking at like just bills go away, and then your fish too. And then the boat came up, and I gave my spear gun. The rules of the tournament though is you have to swim to your float. You can't get in the boat if the float pops back up. So I was like, I'm stressing. I'm like, I give him my white belt, and my gun, and I was like, can you guys see it? And then the captain, I see it popped up. And like, where? He goes, back where you just came from. So the fish just circled back. So I had to give him all my gear and start swimming. It took me about 35 minutes.
So you gotta get close to the fish and just
I got to my float, and then now it's a hand fight. You gotta pull him up. And I pulled him up twice about halfway, and he ran it back down, and the last time he finally came up, and we dispatched the fish and got him on board.
Jeez, what a story.
Yeah,
that's a wild one.
Yeah, it was wild. It was earned. That's all the effort and the swimming in it to get to it, but you cheered on. The other boats in the tournament were cheering you on too, because they're happy for you. They're happy to see a fish like that get landed.
Jeez.
Because they don't always get landed. Like my same friend, Pete, who was there with me that day, 2 years later, we were in the tournament on the same team again. And he shot, I think, a 500-pound black marlin, like 5 feet in front of him, in the head. And it took off. Yeah. It took off so fast, it pulled his float under, and it was like 10 feet under the water running straight sideways, his float. And then the marlin breached 15 feet in the air and broke his gear off when he came down.
Wild.
I mean, I don't know if he came crab food that night, that fish, or if he's going to make it. They're pretty durable, but if you hit them somewhere, they could just die.
Vital.
It's unfortunate, but nothing goes to waste. People think...
Not in that ecosystem.
No, not in that ecosystem, man. Everything gets eaten. Everything.
Wild.
Those pork crabs at the bottom of the ocean, they want to get fed too.
And they eat well.
Yeah.
Okay, so completely pivoting. So kind of family philosophy, future vision, those sort of things. We only have about 5 more questions to wrap up here. So I wanted to ask, as a proud father, we obviously talked about Teo. How has sharing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and your passion for martial arts with your son deepened your bond with him? And what core values do you hope he learns from your time together on the mats?
Yeah. It's just a time together. We're together all the time, and I only have one child, and it's Teo. And all my love and attention is to him. It always has been. But there's that point where you have to grow him into a man too, right? And
of course.
There's that part of it where it's difficult sometimes, but I think our time together is just, that influence just rubs off. You know, as long as I'm doing my best, or I'm not always doing my best. Sometimes I don't want to go out and do things, but I need to. Yeah. So I'm trying to teach him like doing things when you don't always want to, just being consistent. Consistency pays off. But with having our time together, I just hope that rubs off. With my dad, he worked out of town a lot. He was at my hockey games when he could be, and he lectured me lots about my bad report cards. But it was the moments when we were hunting, driving to go hunting in Saskatchewan, or hockey road trips. Anytime he could be on a hockey road trip, a lot of times it would be me and him in a hotel room, out of town road trip. And we'd be play fighting. Like, we always play fight. And so I see a lot of those similarities with my son. But my dad had 3 kids. I only have 1. I have a lot more time with my son than my dad had, even with me. And as a father, it's nice to push your kid off and him go be a man. But if you can keep him close and keep an eye on him, help him, I want him to... Jiu-Jitsu is given me so much, so why wouldn't I encourage him to try to achieve the same? And I think he has an opportunity to carry on what I started if he wants. It was never forced on him, right? It's something that I would like to see him do. But if he wanted something else, he talked about going to do this and that. And you can go and give it a try, man. You want to go work at Walmart? Go give it a try. You'll learn something for sure. But there is an opportunity for you here to do something you love, make a living doing it, and help people find their potential. Like, and that's it too. There's so many people that get into jiu-jitsu and they don't know their potential, and then they start to find it with it, because jiu-jitsu demands your potential. Mm-hmm. If you don't give it, you won't stick jiu-jitsu out, because you'll hate it, because you'll get smashed. But if you give out your potential, you'll see that it can work for you too, just like it's working for the guy over there smashing your friend.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. So I got two thoughts. So the reason why I deliberately asked about that question, so this podcast was in part made to fill an area of my life, just getting the opportunity to interview people. You and I have known each other on the mats for a long time at your school. We have hung out a couple times, but like, this is my first time to actually have an in-depth conversation. And one thing that I've always appreciated, and I've brought this up with other guests too, because I've been hyper focused on it recently, is the roles that fathers have with their sons. And I've really come to appreciate the relationships that people have had. And yours is one of them that I look at. And you often get this at the black belt promotions, because that's their chance to give a speech, right? And we've had several people that have gotten their black belts and they've spoken to you as like that male figure that they're looking at, right? And I believe, like, I'm fortunate I still have a close relationship with my father, but there's people in your lives that play different roles for different things, and you've played that male figure for so many people. So I definitely wanted to ask that question, and also say you've done a great job.
That's, to me, when I hear things like that, I got a really nice compliment from one of my white belts who's in his, I think he's 60. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about, great shape. When he really dropped us a really solid compliment, and it just tells me, okay, if this was my life, I'm happy with that. Giving people an opportunity to grow. Everyone can grow, but find something that you like to grow with, because you'll enjoy it more. You can grow by picking cans in the ditch. You'll get some money for it, but it's not really going to be enjoyable. So if you have other opportunity, take it and run with it. Like, that's what it's for. The reward is to see the students grow. Mm-hmm. And like, my son's part of that, and getting to see that, him turn into a young man, and then also gain that respect on the mat and the camaraderie. Yeah, that's the reward for sure.
Yeah, because a lot of my guests are on the business focus side. There's always this topic of work-life balance, and I've reworded it. I really like Jeff Bezos talked about work-life blend. You have the perfect embodiment of work-life blend because you have your son on the mat. You have your passion for physical activity, and it's also your business model, and there's like personal development that comes from it. And it's
stay in shape. Like, this was the plan, right? Like, I knew if I stayed in the oil field, I'd have more money, but I'd probably be more out of shape and not really enjoying it. I enjoy my quiet time too. I enjoy being by myself. Yeah. I'm super content alone. But I know why. It's because I have such a fulfilling time and community outside of my alone time. I don't need to I've been pretty single for most of 10 years, right? And I'm content with that, because I get so much satisfaction from my community, and the social part that I need is there. You know, I only have one kid, but I have 35 kids. They're all super special to me, especially it has to be earned too, right? They have to be there long enough for me to get to know them and their personality. And I treat them all individually. You figure out how they are and their personalities, and try to figure out what makes the kids go. Yeah. But I'm fulfilled like that. Like, some people, you might think you only have one child. Sometimes I wish I had more, right? But that's very quickly passed by. I've got 35 kids that hang out with 3 times a week, and I get to see their growth, and some of them from 7 years old to having beards. It's wild. It's cool.
What's a common theme or philosophy that connects your journey with BJJ with the rest of your life?
Man, common philosophy, consistency. If you want to achieve anything, you got to be consistent My dad used to say to me, no plan, no goal, no results. And it's so true. You can't you can't achieve and get anywhere without some consistency, a plan, set some goals, and then that's how you'll see results.
Looking back on your journey, what advice would you give to those who want to follow an unconventional path to success?
Yeah. You have to, you have to buckle down. No one's going to do it for you, right? You have to have a plan. How are you going to execute? If there's no plan of execution, a plan is just a dream, right? You have to have a plan of execution. And there's nothing wrong with setting goals high, but you have to be realistic too.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've seen people set goals that are not realistic and they're not being honest with themselves. I try to be honest with myself, with my expectations. There's things like I know I'm not good at, or I don't try to pretend I'm good at them. I try to source it to someone I know who's good at it, right? But if you're pushing into new territory, try to educate yourself as much as you can with people that you know what they're talking about. There's a lot of gray noise out in the world,
of course,
with the internet. And because back in the day, to get your thoughts out publicly, you'd have to get a publisher, and you have to get thought to paper, and then paper to paperback into a bookstore. Nowadays, everyone can just put their thoughts out on the internet, and a lot of people like it pretty convincing, even if the information is not that good. So you have to filter through some of that. Find people, whatever your passion is, seek out that advice. I think I'm a copycatter. A lot of and when I say that, like jiu-jitsu, I didn't ask a lot and people show me. I just watched a lot, and then trial and error until you're like, oh, that's it. I feel now I'm doing it right. Like spearfishing, I just copycat a lot of people. Like once I was on the boat with really good spearfishermen, I'm like, okay, he does this, he does that. Okay, and then if I don't understand why, I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But take note of it. It's if I see it again, maybe I can self-explain to myself why this process is happening. I try to answer as many questions for myself, because when you do that, you remember. If you just say, why do we do this? And someone tells you, I mean, it's in one ear out the other half the time.
2 last questions. Where do you see your journey taking you for the next decade with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, with adventure sports, you name it?
Let's Jiu Jitsu. I'm just going to stay the course. Obviously, 10 years, that would put my kid in the age of 29 or almost 30.
Yeah.
It's a big decade for sure. I could see us maybe opening another location, try to serve another part of the community. With the adventure sports, I'm just keep at it.
Yep.
I got my ticket booked for my tournament in July. That's my thing. I like to do that every year. It's a fundraiser as well for a really good cause. All the fish we get in the tournament.
What's the cause?
It's for local ranch communities.
Okay.
And their schools. There's lots of rancheros or farm kids that have schools but not in town. They're up in the hills. And we built them a big playground park with all the proceeds from the fish.
Amazing.
Yeah, they call it the Divers Park.
Okay.
So they always come down and they do that little dancing first and thank yous and stuff. But yeah, it's cool. It's for a good cause. And then Mexico's hot in July, but I like that. I like that scorching heat. And the water's nice and beautiful. It's a good time.
Good.
I'll keep up with that. Like I was saying before, I'm thinking about trying to push some more people towards spearfishing and seeing how you get these little more internationals. Mexico's awesome. Baja, it's a direct flight, but there's great places to spearfish all over the world that they're dying to be explored by me and other people. So like Madagascar,
I recommend it.
Mozambique, Indonesia, Japan, even southern Japan.
Sounds like nice destinations.
Yeah, like these are all places to get on the list. But business is first. Got to make sure that that's healthy, and if that's healthy and I'm putting my time and attention there, everything else works out.
Awesome.
But that's the next 10 years. Yeah. I'm happy, so I just keep doing what I'm doing and try to grow.
Yeah.
Get some growth and help my son grow more. That's the focus, and the students grow.
That reminds me of one of the guests that I had, Haley Daniels. So she was an Olympian, and I asked her the question, what is her view of success? What does success look like to her? And she had actually taken that, what her view of success is from somebody else. And it was success is being content. And I think that's the perfect thing for you, is you're very content and happy with where you're at and the direction everything's taken. And that's why I thought it'd be great to have you on the show. As we wrap up, what final message would you like to leave with listeners to inspire them to embrace challenges, trust your unique paths, or their own not so average journeys to success?
Yeah, I think if you stick with something you really like and you are consistent with it, passionate with it, people can tell that you really like it. And if you work hard at it, you're going to be successful at it. It doesn't matter what it is. But being honest with yourself too, because we're not all built to do everything. So find something you're good at, find something you have a lot of passion with, and that makes you happy. That's the thing. Are you happy when you get up? Mm-hmm. Are you happy when you go to bed? And those are really easy guides for me if I'm on the right path. And I go to bed happy and wake up happy most days of my life. There's always more to do, though. Sometimes I feel I've felt complacency, but you can battle that just with effort and a little bit of ass kicking sometimes. You got to be hard on yourself sometimes, but you're your own worst enemy and you're your best ally too. So you have to choose what you're going to align with. Do you want to align with the ally or the enemy? And if you do team up with the ally, you make it pretty unstoppable. If you want something, go and get it. Figure out a way, and just don't try to take too big of steps. It's small steps. That's another thing. Incremental. Don't try to see the end results right away. Because I didn't see them. I'm seeing results from some of my early aspirations, but it's not the end aspiration. There's more to be done. So you got to keep going. You got to keep working, and if you feel complacency, figure something else that challenges you. And maybe in that case, jiu-jitsu, my complacency may have been happening the moment I started getting serious about spearfishing. But now when I go on a spearfishing trip and I come back, I'm so recharged. I feel so recharged and eager to get back to jiu-jitsu. And then when I'm doing jiu-jitsu for a while, I'm so charged up about going on a spearfishing trip. They feed each other. Yeah. And they both bring me happiness. So
amazing.
You got to get happy, man. You got to get happy.
So that brings us to the end of the episode. I'm grateful that I was able to find this sport myself. They joke around that like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is a lifestyle, and it really is. Like without it, I wouldn't have the level of confidence that I do today. I wouldn't have the outlet to handle a lot of the stress that I take on my daily routines. And it really has defined who I am as a person. So in part, thank you for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And so if you made it all the way to the end of this, I really appreciate you. Please, once again, help us get it out there. Share, like, subscribe, find us where you can. The community's growing. We got more guests coming on, different backgrounds, you name it. But let's get after it together. Take care. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike.
You're the king of anecdotes. There was a time when I was joking around. I wanted to make a Twitter account that said "shit my professor says," and just literally soundbiting Josh the whole time.
Do it.